Alright, welcome back to MMA Al Dente, guys. I'm here to talk to you about UFC Fight Night Paris. Here, headlined by Gane versus Tuivasa. Let me state at the top, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. I'm fucking begging you. Alright. Gane versus Tuivasa. Let me just state at the top, I'm going to go through each fight in the order from top to bottom, give you a preview, prediction, and bets along the way. Not a bet for every fight, though, but along the way there will be bets. And there will be blood. You have my word on that. Gane versus Tuivasa. I've got Gane winning this fight. I know I'm really hooking you with that big bet there, that big prediction, but my bet for the fight is he gets a finish. Minus 150, which I'm usually not big on negative odds for a prop bet, but 5 rounds to get a finish, Gane, I'll take it, because I do think he's got the potential certainly to be maybe the second most dangerous fighter at heavyweight after Ngannou, and he's more versatile. I think he's got a good chance of winning via submission, to be honest, if he decides to impose his wrestling game plan. Not that he's ever had one, but he's been training with wrestlers lately, posted on Instagram and training with Dagestanis. And I do think, just knowing he's done that training and looking at a guy like Tuivasa, it's at least occurred to him that he can try, with his athleticism, and he's got every physical advantage possible in this fight. He can try to take Tuivasa down and expose him badly there. Because Tuivasa, even though he's really, really tough fighter, mentally tough especially, he's still physically built like a big turtle, like me. If I was on the ground, you think I'd be able to get up? No, I'd be stuck there going, fuck, I'm dead, I'm fat. And he's not that fat, but he's fat enough where a guy like Gane could expose him just on the physicality end alone. And I think he can do that both places, on the feet or on the ground. But I think it would be interesting, at least, to see Gane try to go that path against Tuivasa. I have it in my head it's a possibility. That's why I like the finish prop odds instead of just a TKO. But if you were to ask me with a gun to my head, what's my prediction? I'm going with Gane via TKO round 3. How do I see that playing out? Body shots, on the feet. He is so... Again, he's got every physical advantage possible, and he's such a good kickboxer. He really is. He's this new breed of athlete and whatever and yada yada, but it's not all athleticism. He's a good striker, really good. Brings a diverse attack, much more diverse than Tuivasa. Really, Tuivasa's got the harder punch. That's his advantage in this fight. He's got to strike his way into Gane. He's got to put him out. That's got to happen one way or the other, because Gane, even his punches are going to be a lot longer than Tuivasa's punches. Could sit around waiting for counters, but that's not going to work against a guy with such a diverse attack. He's going to be stabbing in the body with kicks and to the legs, slamming him with leg kicks, and really piecing him up from the outside. So, Tuivasa, I think his best course of action is blitzkrieg. That's really what I think. Which, again, that would be my best course of action if I was fighting Gane or any UFC fighter. Because I'm outmatched everywhere. And my best chance is reducing the fight to a brawl. And that's what Tuivasa's got to do. He's tough and whatever, he could hang in there, and if he finds the right moment, make something happen. I'm sure he's got some tricks on up his sleeve, but I don't think that's going to behoove him. I love that fucking word. I don't think that's going to behoove him fighting a guy like Gane, who's going to make him pay, and if he doesn't do something about it, he's going to make him pay more and more with each round. The payment will get bigger. All right. But, my prediction is Gane wins via finish. That's my bet. My prediction, round 3 TKO. But I think if he gets a submission, it would be more likely to come earlier. Or, of course, if Tai is somehow fatigued in the end, it could happen anyway. But, in round 5 or whatever. But I think Gane imposing his wrestling and trying to impose a top game, especially against a guy like Tuivasa. And I don't just mean taking him down and throwing him in an arm triangle. But I mean using ground and pound as well. Ciryl Gane's a guy with, again, just about every physical advantage. He's an incredible athlete, and if he was able to use all those physical advantages, I think he could really expose a wide gap on the ground between these two guys. But anyway, and let me say, I'm going to be drunk enough, at least if I don't do it before then, to the point where I'm going to bet on Tuivasa via knockout. Because, alright, I don't know. Because that's the kind of degenerate I am. Alright, moving on. Robert Whittaker versus Marvin Vettori, co-main event. I've got this fight being kind of the way you've got the fight being, I think. I tried to look for a path to victory for Vettori, and there is a path to victory. I think, he's got to make something happen. I expect his wrestling to fail him in this fight. I have that in my head. Of course, if that's not the case, he's got an incredible chance of winning this fight. But Robert Whittaker on the feet, I don't see Vettori having that stopping power. Of course, he could drop him twice and win 2 rounds. And Vettori, he's dropped Jack Hermansson and whatever. But Robert Whittaker is a much better striker than Jack Hermansson, even though Hermansson looked great in his last outing against whoever. But Robert Whittaker is moving so well on his feet. I think he pieces up Vettori every second they're on the feet. Generally speaking, he's going to be winning the small moments, moving in and out. He's great on his back foot. Vettori is only ever really on his front foot, and Vettori is too slow and plodding. And I just see Robert Whittaker seeing a lot of his strikes coming, and Vettori not seeing a lot of Whittaker strikes coming, especially because they come from different angles, and Whittaker is more diverse in his attack, just on the basic level of punches and kicks. Whittaker is more diverse in his attack, and I could see him really outpointing Vettori. Vettori, his path to victory, his primary path to victory is cornering and catching Whittaker and either taking him down or smothering him against the cage, because in the clinch or in any wrestling situation, even if he's not successful in takedowns or whatever, Vettori's going to be the bully. He's a big, strong fucking bully. I love watching him fight. But Robert Whittaker is quick. He's light on his feet. He's like the anti-bully. And I think he's going to be playing the matador here. And if I had a prediction, gun to my head, I'd go Whittaker via decision, probably like most fighters. But without a gun to my head and some drinks in me, I'll be betting on Vettori to win via decision plus 350, because I think that's his path to victory, no matter what. Generally a decision or, a cut. But, Robert Whittaker's not going to be knocked out or submitted on paper by Marvin Vettori. Now, Robert Whittaker, he's got great hands and whatever, but I don't see anybody finishing Vettori. Vettori might be the toughest guy in the world. He's fucking insanely tough. He's got a big brick head, and maybe Robert Whittaker breaks his hands on Vettori's head, and then he taps out with his foot, and that's how the fight ends. But other than that, I see Robert Whittaker winning a decision. So, and that you could get a minus 125 unanimous decision, or any decision. And I see some value in that. But again, I'm not big on negative odds, and I'm not dying to bet on that. So moving on. Alessio Di Chirico versus Roman Kopylov. This is a fight that probably shouldn't be the third fight from the top. Doesn't really have a title, the third fight from the top, so I guess it's fine. It's just another fight, but it's a main card fight, and even on that, it doesn't belong on the main card, in my opinion. But nevertheless, I'm a fan of Di Chirico anyway. Kopylov, nothing against him, just hasn't won me over. And Di Chirico, look, this fight is even, in my opinion, and the odds are even. It's minus 115 each, and to win a decision, I think is plus 175 each. I really have no lean either way in this fight. But, well, that's not true. I'm going to have to give you a prediction, and I'm leaning towards Di Chirico. But that's with physicality alone. In fact, I expect Kopylov to be the better technical fighter and the faster fighter, but not fast enough where Di Chirico's not in every second of this fight. And look, speaking of which, Di Chirico was knocked out in his last fight against Abdul Razak Al Hassan. And before that, he knocked out Joaquin Buckley with a head kick. They were both head kicks. So maybe a decision isn't such a lock in this one, especially a guy coming off a vicious knockout. But still, Chirico's always shown incredible toughness and good durability and cardio and every other trait a decision fighter needs. And with his physical advantages, kind of like Vettori, where I expect Vettori to be bullying Whittaker when they're in the clinch and whatever, I expect Chirico to be bullying Roman Kopylov. The only difference is this fight is not going to be, it doesn't have Robert Whittaker leading the dance. It's going to be a slower fight. And I see Chirico winning because there's more room for his physicality to take over. Whereas that's not the case for Vettori. But, although I'm going to bet on Vettori because, degenerate. But still, this is a very close fight on paper. I think they're both fighting for their jobs. Maybe Kopylov is. Chirico may not be because he, that was a beautiful knockout over Buckley. But two guys whose backs are against the wall in a sense because Chirico still, I think he lost 4 out of his last 5. It's not looking good. You don't want to lose 5 out of your last 6. That's a guy who could be in the realm of getting cut despite how the win looked. So, I really hope Chirico wins on that because I am kind of a Chirico guy. But not going to bet on this one. Prediction, gun to my head, Chirico via decision. Next up, Nasrat Hapqarast versus John Makdessi. This is an interesting fight. There's a few ways this could go. I see Nasrat Hapqarast winning the fight. I don't really like his odds. But I find myself liking more and more his knockout odds. I just, this is like a fight in which I look at it like stocks or something. That's how every fight really is. But you're trying to find trends and whatever. And John Makdessi, I do see him trending downward, even though he's coming off a spirited victory, close fight, over Ignacio Bahamondes. And that guy has done very well since then. Got some beautiful knockouts and submissions in his last few fights. But so it's a win that's gotten better with age in the last year. But speaking of age, it's been a year and a half since John Makdessi fought that fight against Bahamondes. And now he's almost 38, I think. He's getting up there. I think he's 37. And he's fighting a guy who's 27 or something. Nasrat Hapqarast. Hapqarast is, I want to say he's a durable guy. I want to say I trust his durability. Not that that's really much of an issue against a guy like John Makdessi. But it's something, and I don't see Hapqarast going away. And as far as him fighting John Makdessi on the feet, I see Nasrat Hapqarast having a distinct speed advantage. And he's got much sharper boxing. John Makdessi is a great counter striker, but I think he's going to be losing overall over the course of 15 minutes. He's going to be losing. I see Hapqarast just being a step ahead of him and really finding a home for that left hand. I'm not saying he's going to knock Makdessi out, but I'm absolutely betting on it. Plus 300. Of course, I also bet on Makdessi to win decision, plus 300. But I do think there's a greater, you can get Hapqarast winning early, 600 and 1,000. If he wins via knockout rounds 1 and 2, that's what I see as a distinct possibility here. Just following the trends. Hapqarast, his stock is a little down after that loss to Bobby Green and even to Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker's a guy who, he's a very skilled martial artist. At this point, I want to say he's got a deceptively bad record. Or, it's deceptively good. It is good, but he's got a few losses on there. More than a few. And he was able to wrestle Hapqarast. I don't see that being a path to victory for Makdessi. Bobby Green was in Hapqarast's face, just smothering him on the feet and overwhelming him. Although he never overwhelmed him. He didn't take him out of the fight. John Makdessi, I don't see him following that path to victory. He's a counter striker. He's not going to be leading the dance or smothering anybody. And the loss of Drew Dober, I don't see that being the cards for Makdessi either. That's just not in the cards. So I think Hapqarast is, a little undervalued overall. And not really where it's enticing me to bet on his money line, which can be at whatever, it's minus 250 or whatever. But I like him winning via knockout. I think there's something to that, especially early on, plus 600, plus 1,000. I'm following trends here. I think this fight will be on the feet where he won't be smothered and overwhelmed, forced to fight on the back foot. He's going to be comfortable, throwing heat, and he's fighting a guy who's coming off a 1.5-year layoff. He's been knocked out a few times, but, he hasn't shown any signs of fading in that regard. But he's almost 38, or he's 37 in whatever months. So, I'm taking Hapqarast. My prediction, he wins a decision. My bet, Nasrat Hapqarast knockout early. And I sprinkled something on Makdessi via decision because he's a good counter striker. And again, he is tough and whatever. I do see there's always a path to victory in Makdessi's fights. And if you don't believe me, just start betting on Makdessi fights. You'll be like, holy shit, he's always in it. But I'm betting he's, starting to slow down, and this is a pivotal loss for him. It's either going to be a 30-27 decision or a knockout for Hapqarast. Next up, William Gomis. No, that's not it. I think next up is Charles Jourdain versus Nathaniel Wood. I think so. Anyway, Charles Jourdain versus Nathaniel Wood. This is a fight where I expect it to be awesome. I do think Charles Jourdain is one of the most exciting fighters at 145. This fight is at 145. Wood did move up in the last few months. He spent the last year moving up, I guess. But he fought Charles Rosa, just dominated him. And now he's fighting Charles Jourdain, who I want to say is, one of the most exciting fighters on the roster. Now, this fight is very interesting. This should be the fucking main event in my book. This is awesome. But I think I'm betting on Charles Jourdain here. I'm betting on him at minus 140. I like the money line because I can't really trust this going one way or the other, finish or decision, on Charles Jourdain's end. Nathaniel Wood, I could see winning a decision, but he's going to have to impose, I would think he would have to impose a wrestling game. Or, he could win the fight on the feet, too. Nathaniel Wood is the better technical striker. He's better technically than just about everybody. He's awesome. But Charles Jourdain is bigger, stronger, and more wild. And he holds that power and that tenacity and that volume and everything very well for 3 rounds. Like, incredibly well. We saw in the Shane Burgos fight just a month or two, just 2 months ago, that he was losing any moment he lost in that fight was wrestling. And he was defending wrestling, which is exhausting, being thrown around, having Shane Burgos, who's 200 pounds there, on his back. And he was able to shake Shane off. And in the 3rd round, he was on fire. On fire. He didn't lose a second of tenacity or cardio or anything. He was still there. And he's a guy who I see bringing a lot of trouble to Nathaniel Wood if Nathaniel Wood isn't able to dominate him wrestling-wise for 3 rounds. Which Nathaniel Wood, even though he's, a smaller fighter and whatever, I don't see him, even though he's a smaller fighter and whatever, I don't see him being able to hang with Charles Jourdain for 3 rounds. I don't see him, having the wrestling, certainly. I don't see him having wrestling where he can hold that for 3 rounds against a guy like Jourdain. He might be able to put it all together for 1 round, but then I see Jourdain just winning this fight on the feet and maybe even lacking technically on the feet, but winning the way Charles Jourdain does, just with volume and tenacity, and he's fucking relentless. And if he can't knock you dead with some wild shit, or he's got great hands too, he's gonna do it with pressure, striking pressure. And again, this fight could be close if it goes to a decision, but I think in the end, everybody, just like the Shane Burgos fight, everybody will say, all right, the better man was that guy, because Charles Jourdain isn't going anywhere. On the feet, Nathaniel Wood is going to be jousting and whatever. He's a much better technical striker, but he's got he's given up 3 inches of height here, and I don't even know the reach, but Charles Jourdain, I'm assuming he's got reach on him. And, Nathaniel Wood, I don't know exactly. I think it was easy against a guy like Charles Rosa, but if you want to test how he's going to carry that extra 10 pounds or whatever he's gained fighting up a weight here, this is a fight where he's going to be tested, how he carries that weight, and what kind of fighter he is using all those muscles over the course of 15 minutes, because he was just tossing Charles Rosa around. That's not going to be the case here. Jourdain is a guy who he's really tough to wrangle and strangle, even though he was choked out in the third round by Julian Erosa, who's the opposite of Nathaniel Wood, just physically. And he's really good on his feet, just striking-wise. You saw Shane Burgos is the man, and Shane Burgos wanted nothing from him on the feet. So I see Jourdain taking over this fight. First round could be close. Nathaniel Wood could go the wrestling route because he's seen Shane Burgos. And it's not like Nathaniel Wood is some D1 wrestler or whatever, but I think he's just a better... He looks so technically sound everywhere. Or he did at bantamweight anyway. But Charles Jourdain, I've seen enough from him, even though he lost in the third round to Erosa. He's got so much grit. You know, that Marcelo Rojo fight a year and a half ago, whatever, 2 years ago. He got that third round finish. He's just, he's a problem for anybody. So I am going to bet on him to win via third round, plus 1,400. That's incredible. I'll bet on that every time for Charles Jourdain. I'd probably bet on it at plus 700. But overall, I like his money line, minus 140. I could see him winning a decision because Nathaniel Wood's really tough, only been put away by John Dodson in the UFC, where Dodson knocked him out in the third round, which, again, third round knockout. So I see Charles Jourdain if taking over this fight, and if not getting a late finish, then winning a decision comfortably. So I really like Charles Jourdain, the money line, minus 140, and I love Charles Jourdain, round 3, plus 1,400. All right. Next up, Nasruddin Imavov versus Joaquin. Nope, never mind. Dustin Stolzfus versus Abus Magomedov. This is a cool fight because, I mean, maybe not for Stolzfus, but cool fight. I like watching Stolzfus fight, and this Magomedov guy, he was the man just a few years ago. I don't know exactly what happened since then, but he was knocked out in the finals of I think the first PFL season against Lewis Taylor, who, you know, really, that was an awesome moment for Lewis Taylor. I was rooting for him to win, and I was ecstatic when he won. But that's because I thought, oh, Magomedov's got a future, and then I haven't seen him since, really. Now he's here in the UFC, and he's fighting a guy who, you know, maybe he's not, you know, it might not be long before he's cut from the UFC, to be honest. He might lose this one and be cut. I don't know how it's going to go. But he's a guy we've seen hang with good UFC fighters. He's got some shitty losses, some tough matchups. Rodolfo Vieira and Gerald Mearshart and whoever else. And he beat Dwight Grant, who, you know, was coming up in weight and whatever. So you could take away something from that victory if you'd like. But I like Stolzfus as a fighter. I think he's good. He's good everywhere. He's a good, much better grappler on paper, but he, you know, he's serviceable on the feet. I just think Magomedov is a better fighter. Magomedov's a guy who I think he's Dagestani. He's a problem, more so on the feet, but he's got great submissions too. He kind of reminds me of Imavov in a way, but. You know, he's going to be a problem here. I think he's going to be a problem for a lot of guys in the UFC. I do have questions about his chin because he was knocked dead by Lewis Taylor in seconds. But that just, I don't know, when it happened too, it seemed like an anomaly. And that might be the anomaly in both of their careers, Taylor and Magomedov. But Magomedov's got a lot of upside. He's here in the UFC. And just on the general, you know, whatever, as a litmus test, I think this is a good gatekeeper match for the UFC, where Stolzfus is holding the gate to the UFC. You know, he might not be holding it too much longer, but he gives everybody hell, and he's folded a few times late submissions, and that's how I see this fight going, to be honest. Magomedov, I think his submission victory bet odds are undervalued here against Stolzfus because just a lot of times I'm more inclined to go with how I think the loser is going to lose as opposed to how the winner is going to win. So Magomedov, even though I see him, and of course he's got better hands than Stolzfus, where if he wins, it could be a clean knockout. But Stolzfus has proven to be tough, and he's a guy that doesn't go away, keeps himself safe positionally from the strikes and whatever, but sometimes he leaves himself open, leaves that neck open. And knowing those are his instincts as a fighter, I think Magomedov's submission odds are undervalued here. So, especially because he's been getting some submissions as of late in his career. So, late submission odds, I think, are plus 1250 and plus 1800 for round 2, round 3 submission. Stolzfus, a good, competent guy everywhere. If he doesn't get knocked out early, or if Magomedov doesn't get knocked out early, I see Magomedov beating Stolzfus up, making him panic a little bit. Stolzfus isn't able to impose his wrestling on Magomedov, and Magomedov is able to find a submission. I'd love to see him turn into Khabib or whatever, but I think that's how this fight's going to go. It's going to be closer than people expect, especially on the feet and whatever. And I'm sure Magomedov is, taking care of his chin since getting knocked out. Whatever it's occurred to him, that could happen again. And but overall, Magomedov's a bigger, better, dangerous guy, and I expect him to find a victory here. I just think Stolzfus, he makes a great UFC gatekeeper, but Magomedov belongs in the UFC. That's what I've had in my head for years, so I expect this to be a victory for him. Next up, Firas Ziam versus Michel Figlak. Michel Figlak. This guy Figlak, he's 8-0. I think he's got 4 TKOs, 4 decisions, and he's got some subs as an amateur. I don't think one is a rear naked choke, though. He's got a few different submissions. But I say that because Firas Ziam, both these guys are like 25, by the way. I think Figlak's 26, or Ziam's 26. But Ziam's got UFC experience. We've seen him fight some really good fighters. And I'm not exactly sure how this fight is going to go. I know Figlak's going to be pushing the pace, but Ziam, Ziam's a good striker. He's a good, long, rangy striker. And if he's not going to get smothered by Figlak against the cage, then I could see him having success on the outside. Figlak, no matter what you say about him, that forward pressure is a great trait to have as a fighter. If it starts to fail him, which this could be a fight where that happens, then it won't be such a great trait. But for a fight like this, a guy we've seen in some, close decisions, Ziam, I don't know if I've ever seen Firas Ziam in a fight, in the UFC anyway. I think he's 2-2, but I don't think I've ever seen him where I said, now that guy's the better guy. He beat Jamie Malarkey and he beat Luigi Vendramini, but he was knocked around in the 3rd round of Vendramini, and Malarkey went tooth and nail with him. That was a really close fight. And it was a dirty fight, a lot against the cage. Not, that there were fouls or anything, but it was a grimy clinch fight, wrestling battle. And look, Ziam is good. He is very good. And he got that win over Malarkey, who I'd love to see fight forever. So I hope Ziam sticks around and everything. But still, he's lost twice now. He was smoked by Terrence McKinney via rear naked choke. I think he's got 3 submission losses, all via rear naked choke. Figlak doesn't have a rear naked choke, but he's got to know that's the path to victory here. I see this fight being close. I don't see Ziam getting submitted by Figlak, and I see this fight being kind of like the Malarkey fight, where, they're at least Ziam's trying to strike from the outside, and Figlak is bullying him a little bit with pressure, and it, in one way or another, degenerates into a clinch battle against the cage. I see it going more the Malarkey route, and I could see this one being close like that. But, and let me say, my prediction is Figlak wins a decision. Just with forward pressure and whatever. I like what I see, and I don't like what I see from Firas Ziam inside the UFC anyway. But I think Firas Ziam could be undervalued because he's fought a lot of good competition. Guys that, Magomedov hasn't fought. That between the two of them, the top 5 fighters that either of them have fought have been on Ziam's record. Ziam's the guy with the deeper resume here, and he's got more fights. But, in this one, I see it being more of a clinch battle and whatever. I don't trust Ziam to ever lead that dance. He needs to lead the dance, take control of the fight, instead of trying to reverse against the cage and whatever. I'd love to see him just develop better footwork, circling out. If he came in and had much better footwork, if he worked on that before he got to the UFC and whatever, he'd be in much better shape here. But he's still young. He's 25 years old, whatever. Who knows how this is going to go with these guys. But it wouldn't surprise me if either one of them left the UFC and came back. Although Ziam's already got, more fights and whatever. But he's the younger guy. So, and Figlak's got a lot of amateur fights, I believe. I forgot what it was. But I think he's undefeated as an amateur. And Won, closer to 10 than 5 fights as an amateur. So he's got experience, and that's why I don't think Ziam, if, he didn't have that amateur experience and this was his 9th fight, Figlak, I would say, all right, Ziam has a lot more. I would probably be betting on Ziam, just thinking deeper resume, more fights, more experience, and potentially an advantage on the feet. Potentially. I'm not sure about that. At range, I'm saying. But either way, I expect a grimy fight, and I'm going with the guy who I know can lead the dance, and that's Figlak. So, Figlak decision. As for my bets, the only thing I sprinkled on was for us via decision, plus 215. I like that. I think his money line is plus 155 or something. I'll take decision at plus 215 because I think that's where it's at for him, his path to victory. But it's going against my prediction. All right, next up, Nassourdine Imavov versus Joaquin Buckley. This is an awesome fight. A really awesome fight, and I do think it's going to produce a knockout. As for who's going to get that knockout, remains to be seen. In fact, I've bet on both guys getting the knockout. But generally speaking, I trust Imavov more. The reason I'd bet on Buckley getting a knockout is because Buckley gets knocks out. Knockouts. Idiot. The reason I bet on Imavov getting a knockout is because Buckley gets knocked out. So, and Imavov's got good hands, deceptively good hands. I just think, Joaquin Buckley, his path to victory here is very narrow. It's, catching Imavov and shutting his lights out. That Philip Hawes fight, Philip Hawes has a lot of the same traits as Buckley. They're both black. I know you were thinking it, so was I. But Philip Hawes is a bigger, stronger guy. And he was able to impose a wrestling game plan against Imavov. Even if Buckley wanted to, which we saw more forced grappling against Abdul Razak Al-Hassan, I don't see that being a path to victory for him over here. He's giving up 6 inches or so in height. Imavov's going to have height and reach on him, and with Buckley's chin that I've questioned since before he got into the UFC, but certainly questioned now, I just see Imavov finding the victory. I think Imavov winning via knockout is the most likely course of victory for either fighter. That's my prediction and my bet. You can get him winning via knockout at plus, I don't even know, plus 300, plus whatever the fuck. I wrote it down, but I don't know. They don't have flat knockout odds on betus.com. They have it where you write down the rounds and whatever. Buckley's knockout is plus 350 for a knockout in any round, which there's something to that, especially in round 1. You can get him at plus 650, I think. That's when he's most likely to get it. And look, Buckley's got knockouts in every round or whatever. He's a good fighter that carries that power late. But I just think against Imavov, with that height and reach, it's only to get more difficult for him as the fight goes on. Imavov getting that knockout, I could see it coming in any round. Against Phil Hawes, that fight I mentioned where he lost a majority decision, I believe, because the third round he was given a 10-8 round, I think. Maybe it was a unanimous decision, but he clearly won the third round. He was pouring it on Philip Hawes. Philip Hawes, the wrestling fell apart for him in the end. It wasn't there for him, and he was resorting to clinching and whatever. But Imavov, even in the first 2 rounds, Imavov looked a little shaky on the feet against Philip Hawes, eating some strikes. But he really turned it up in the middle there, and I see that, especially against a guy like Buckley, who's not going to be smothering him against the cage or even able to do that. I see him finding those opportunities against a guy who's much shorter, much more quickly. So I really like Nassourdine Imavov via knockout here. He got some nice finishes lately over Ian Heinisch and Edmund Shabazian, the TKO victories, although he took Ian Heinisch out on the feet. But against Buckley, I see it being a case of the lights being shut out. Either way. So I like Imavov winning via knockout. I hedged with Buckley winning via knockout. But my prediction and bet, Nassourdine Imavov via knockout. And it should be around 300 or so, I think. Because the first round knockout is plus 700 for Nassourdine Imavov. All right. And that's a case, again, of the knockout being undervalued because he's got good submission skills too. But He's a knockout guy. Benoit Saint-Denis versus Gabriel Miranda. I believe this is the next fight. This is going to be a fun fight. Oh yeah, by the way, I forgot to mention this is in France. Benoit Saint-Denis is fighting out of France. So is Nassourdine Imavov, and Charles Jourdain is fighting out of Canada, but he's French Canadian. You know, there are some guys that are going to have that hometown advantage. Marvin Vettori's Italian, fighting Robert Whittaker. Who knows? I don't know how Europe is. Maybe there's something to that. But whatever. Anyway, Benoit Saint-Denis versus Gabriel Miranda. This is a fight between one of the toughest guys I've ever seen from one fight. Benoit Saint-Denis getting his ass kicked by Zaleski dos Santos. Fighting a newcomer, Gabriel Miranda, who's got, I think, a record of 16-5. And 15 of those victories are via submission. So, let me state at the top, my prediction is Benoit Saint-Denis wins this fight. I think it comes, even though he's got, I think, 7 out of his 8 wins, or 8 out of his 9 wins being via submission. I see Benoit Saint-Denis winning this fight probably via decision. Although he's got good hands, he could get a late TKO. I'm just saying I see him surviving Gabriel Miranda. Now that I've said that, let me say I bet on Gabriel Miranda winning via first round submission, second round submission, plus 1,600 and plus 2,000. Are you kidding me? That's how he wins. So if he's going to win, it's via that, and they have it at 16-1 odds and 20-1 odds. Bet on that. You know, don't bet your life on it, but absolutely bet on that. It's more than a good hedge, too. You know, we're all hedged, like, oh, Tuivasa via knockout. No, if this guy wins, it's via submission. Even over a great submission artist and jiu-jitsu player like Benoit Saint-Denis. Benoit Saint-Denis, still, he's he's not that deep in experience, where Gabriel Miranda's got twice the experience of him. If he wins, it's via submission. So absolutely bet on those two. But, again, I don't think it's going to happen. I think Benoit Saint-Denis, you don't get that many submissions without being good defensively. Benoit Saint-Denis is going to be good defensively. He's got cardio, toughness, and size. And Gabriel Miranda's fought mostly shit competition. I mean, it's mostly shit. And, if he's not able, he's a taller, skinnier guy. If he's not able to impose any sort of a wrestling game plan or judo, whatever it takes to get to the ground and get on top of Benoit Saint-Denis, he's going to be in trouble on the feet. Because he's a guy that keeps his chin up in the air a lot of times. He's been wobbled and hurt. And I don't trust him going the distance against I do trust him going the distance, but I don't trust him going 15 minutes without getting hurt on the feet if he's forced to fight on the feet against a competent striker of any kind. Now, as for him going the distance and whatever, when you have that great submission skills, you can find a way to survive. I'm not just talking about buck scooting and whatever, but, he's a guy that can probably survive, and he's got deeper experience in MMA than Benoit Saint-Denis. But I just see a better fighter in Benoit Saint-Denis fighting, tougher guys. He's been in the UFC now for 2 fights or whatever, but he's fought better guys outside the UFC as well, and he looks better than Gabriel Miranda. I really trust him to get the victory here, but I can't look away from those submission odds from Gabriel Miranda. So I'm betting on that. Benoit Saint-Denis. I wish I wrote down his knockout odds, but I will be betting on him to win via knockout TKO in rounds 2 and 3. But I'm not sure about that. I wish I wrote those down. But that's my prediction as he wins the fight. I do think if I had to give you a prediction with the gun to my head, it'd be a decision. But we'll see how that goes. Next up, I think will be William Gomis versus Jarno Errens. All right. This is a fight that I like Gomis in this fight. I like Gomis in this fight. These are both UFC newcomers. Jarno Errens has 5 submission victories over bums, I believe I wrote down. Not one decent submission victory there. William Gomis is a guy his losses have come via jiu-jitsu. One, he was tapped out by a good European prospect or whatever. And then the next one, he was the other one he lost via jiu-jitsu. He didn't what the hell was it to? I wish I wrote it down or whatever. But still, jiu-jitsu, it seemed like it was his weakness. You know, when he's taken down, he's not good on the ground. He's not great at getting up. And he was caught in a sloppy, shitty heel hook. Not sloppy, but it seemed like he should have seen it coming. And I don't trust him on the ground. So that is a path to victory for Yarno. But still, I like William Gomis in this fight. You know, he's good. I mean, he's good enough on top. He's a good enough wrestler where I think that could be the difference against Yarno, because Yarno, both these guys should be looking to bang, I believe, and William Gomis is just a little bigger. I think he's a little bigger. It says he's 1 inch bigger. Looks like he's the bigger guy, certainly when you watch him fight, and he's a rougher guy. You know, they both have a good amount of TKOs, but William Gomis is all TKOs, and he's a guy that's able to use his wrestling as well. You know, like I said, he's not Mr. Jiu-Jitsu guy or whatever, but those are fights when he was taken down. In fights where he takes his opponents down, that's when, you know, he's dominant on top. And he gets takedowns from the clinch, from the outside. He's, the middle of the mat. He's, I think, going to put together a nice wrestling striking game plan here. And I expect him to be the better guy with physicality alone. You know, he's a guy who I think his last 2 victories have come via ground and pound. Or no, his last victory came via ground and pound. He's just a guy that carries he's got good cardio. You know, got a nice 3rd round finish over a good guy, whatever his name was, Marcos. That was, I don't even know. But that was a higher profile fight. And I trust him more. I trust him more than Yarno or Errens. So I don't really have a bet for this fight, but I'm going with Gomis to win via decision or late TKO. I think he's a guy that's going to be taking over the fight. Look, either one of these guys could get a knockout early. In fact, even for that, I'd favor Gomis because I trust his chin. But, I certainly see Gomis taking over this fight and bullying Yarno before the fight's over. That's my prediction. I don't have a bet because I don't really trust either fighter more until I see him more. Next up, Taha versus Christian Quinonez. This fight, Christian Quinonez looks like a good fighter. He's fought some really good competition outside the UFC. He's got 2 third-round losses and 1 in the 2nd round. I like Khalid Taha winning this fight. I think Khalid Taha is a guy who is underrated and undervalued, therefore, because he's fought some really good competition in the UFC. I don't think Quinonez is going to come in and be on that Raoni Barcelos level. I think Khalid Taha, I've had it in my head, he's got weak cardio, but again, I'm not so sure he does. He's lost late a few times, but he's fighting really good competition. Really good competition, and these are guys that at the UFC level, he's no longer dominating. So when you're not dominating your opponent, yeah, you're going to fatigue a little more. He's fighting a guy here who's entry-level UFC, Christian Quinonez, and I got to be honest, I don't love what I see from him on the feet. I expect Khalid Taha to find success on the feet. I don't know if he's going to win the fight via knockout or decision, but I'm inclined to go with knockout, to be honest, and I think there's value on that too. I think Taha, just with, again, he's undervalued. We've seen him fight some really tough fighters, and he hasn't shown enough of what he can do. And even his victory over Bruno Souza was an arm triangle choke that was ruled a no contest because he popped for whatever the fuck. But, which, here I am making excuses for him. But anyway, I think as a fighter, he's better than people give him credit for, and I really like him on the feet. He's a guy who gives you hell on the feet. He doesn't produce that many TKO KOs, but you can see he's got the power. He's got it in him. And I see it coming together for him here. I really like him winning via knockout. Plus 400 or so, plus 350 for him to win via knockout. And that is my prediction as well. I think he gets a knockout in the first 2 rounds over the UFC newcomer. And Khalid Taha reminds everybody why he was in the UFC to begin with. So people may see him as a guy on the way out, but no. I like his money line. I think it's pretty close. A very thin fight. But I also like, that's minus 120 probably. But the knockout odds are plus 350, plus 400 or so. For him to win round 1 knockout is plus 700. So that's my bet and my prediction. Next up, Eileen Perez versus Stephanie Egger. This is the first fight of the night, the last fight I'm covering here. I'm not sure how this fight is going to go exactly, but I think Stephanie Egger wins it. Eileen Perez, I don't think she's got the ability to strike on the outside, which might even be her best course to victory here against Stephanie Egger. Stephanie Egger's got good striking, but her first fight, her first loss to Connors, whatever the hell her name was just her getting pieced up from the outside and being smothered against the cage. And she couldn't get off the back foot, and she was just getting pieced up for 15 minutes. Eileen Perez, every single fight I've seen her in, I've seen her hit a takedown. I feel like I've seen her hit 10 takedowns or whatever in the last few days. And every single one of those takedowns, or maybe like 9 of them, were from the clinch. She gets into the clinch and rips you to the floor. She's got really strong body locks. She's just got that kind of core strength and whatever, where she's thick, I know that's like the new term for hot women or whatever, but yeah, she's thick, and I could see her bullying Stephanie Egger a little bit, but more than that, I could see that playing into Egger's hands. Egger's a judoka. We've seen she's got a great clinch, just being a judoka, but great throws and whatever. And I don't see that clinch game really playing out well for Eileen Perez. There's a chance it does, where she's able to stuff that guard of Stephanie Egger, even though almost all of her victories come from her driving her way to the mount or crucifix and pounding you out. Eileen Perez has great ground and pound. It's all over shit competition. Stephanie Egger might have one fighter who's got a shit record on her resume. She's fought all great fighters, a lot of good fighters. Don't hold me to that. Only one fighter. She's fought a few shitty ones, but she's got a much better, deeper resume than Eileen Perez. They both have similar records. I think Egger's 7-3, Perez is 7-1, and that's not a gigantic gap in experience either. But Perez is a girl who I don't trust that tactic of her. That's a tactical certainty. She's gonna rip her opponent to the ground via the clinch, and going against a judoka, that could be trouble. That could be her getting put on her back. And even if she's able to put Stephanie Egger on her back, stuffing that guard could be a lot more difficult than people think it is. Stephanie Egger's a girl who hits arm bars at the UFC level, and Perez, just on paper, she's not there yet. She's fluctuated in weight. She's called out. There was a tweet recently that I saw of her calling out Amanda Nunes at 145 and whatever. And she's strong and whatever, and probably only getting bigger, but she's not getting taller. Stephanie Egger might be getting taller. She's pretty tall. But I see Stephanie Egger having a good shot at getting that first round armbar. So her getting a submission in round 1 is plus 475. I like that. I don't love it, but I like it. And, of course, it could come later. It could be a decision. But I do think if it goes to a decision, the odds of Perez winning, if it's a fight that went to a decision, who won the fight, it's much closer odds than the odds are on paper. So Perez winning via decision is plus 400 because, she does have a good top game and she's pretty strong, but it's untested and unproven. So my pick is Stephanie Egger wins. I guess I'll go with a first round submission, because I have it in my head that I bet on that, so I have it in my head that that's a possibility. But it's really just a bet against Eileen Perez. I think she's a girl that's, maybe not as good as her record indicates. 7-1's a great record, but she hasn't fought one fighter that was worth a fuck. Maybe one fighter, her last fight or whatever. But she's not. She doesn't have a great record here. She's shown that she can be the hammer, and I want to see if she can be the nail. And that doesn't even mean punches-wise. That means, anyway, jiu-jitsu-wise or whatever. I want to see how she deals with an armbar. I've never seen any offense against her, aside from a few punches. So, prediction is Egger wins via submission round 1. That's also my bet, plus 475. And now I'm going to recap the bets. All right. At the top, I've got Gane winning via finish, minus 150. I've got I'm predicting Whittaker wins, but I sprinkled something on Vettori via decision, plus 350. I think Whittaker wins a decision. I've got Hapqarast winning via knockout. I've got the first 2 rounds, whatever. Just the odds of winning via knockout should be around plus 300. John Makdessi, I've got winning via, I sprinkled something on him winning decision at plus 300, because if it's a decision, maybe he'll be in it. I don't know. I really think Hapqarast wins that fight. It just, I've been burned by Makdessi before, so I wanted to sprinkle something on that. Charles Jourdain, I've got the money line in a few parlays, but the money line I really like at minus 140. And I also like his round 3 prop odds, plus 1400. That guy wins. If that guy gets a finish, it's probably going to be in round 3. That's when Nathaniel Woods lost. That's when Charles Rosa does his best. I've got Abus Magomedov winning via submission. You can probably get submission flat odds at plus 500, but the last 2 rounds are plus 1250, plus 1800. I think Stolzfus, that's just his way he loses. So no matter what his strength is, I think that's his weakness, and I'm betting against his weakness. Ziam versus Michal Figlak. I've got Figlak winning a decision, but I found myself sprinkling something on Ziam, plus 215 to win a decision. Nasruddin Imavov, I've got him winning via knockout, plus 350, I think, or 300, for him to win via knockout flat. Joaquin Buckley for him to win via knockouts, plus 350. I sprinkled something on that, but my bet, and one of my bigger bets is Imavov putting him away. Gabriel Miranda, I've got Benoit Saint-Denis winning. I want to look up his KO odds, which I haven't seen yet. They didn't have the props available for these guys, or the specific props. And Gabriel Miranda, I have winning via submission. I sprinkled something on him winning via submission. Oh no, the prop bets are available. I just there was another fight where they weren't available. But for Benoit Saint-Denis, I didn't write down his TKO odds. But for Gabriel Miranda, his submission odds in round 1 and 2 are just, they're not slam dunks. I'm betting against them. I'm predicting against them. But I'm absolutely betting on that. Those are, if he wins, it's via submission. For it to be round 1, round 2, plus 1,600, plus 2,000, that's crazy. All right? This is not Romanov versus Chase Sherman. But still, I'm taking Saint-Denis because he's a more proven fighter, even though he's got half the experience. I like what I see from him. And then I've got the Khalid Taha winning via, well, the money line is in the parlay at minus 120 because I can't do prop bets in the parlay. I like him winning minus 120. And knockout plus 400 or so. I do think he's got a great chance of winning a knockout via knockout here against Christian Quinonez. And I do think that's undervalued. And then Stephanie Egger, I've got her winning via submission plus 475. That's my prediction, round 1 submission. And there's also a chance Perez wins the decision. Very small bet on that to hedge the Stephanie Egger bet. So, and that's plus 400. So those are my bets. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I can't wait to see these fights, even the shitty ones. And I will be back on Sunday morning to talk to you about everything I saw. It's going to be great. I'll be wearing a bathrobe. I won't be wearing a blue shirt and a green hat like a bona fide jerk-off. But if you would like to see any of that shit, just please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. I'm begging you. And I'll talk to you soon.